today I am very excited. I'm a little bit nervous. This video is one that I have been wanting to film since I started my YouTube channel, and one that I just have been like nervous to do. Things that I feel like I'm going to talk about are just things that I don't talk about. Y'all really requested this, so I'm just going to be sharing my testimony, which pretty much is just my story, how I came to faith, and then after, and how I do it daily, because being a Christian, or believing in God, isn't going to church on Sunday or just saying that you're a certain religion. It's a daily thing. It's a relationship that we focus on daily. It is because of God and revolves around that. It's not just like this little teeny part of the life that I have. Yeah, did that make sense? I think it did. I don't really know where to start with this. I think I'm just gonna start from the beginning, like when I was younger. I mean, it's all gonna make sense because it all makes sense. So I was born in Houston, Texas, and my family lived in Texas for a long time. We moved around a lot. Like a lot for my dad's job. He just always took new jobs because he wanted to move, and I don't really know the situation, but we moved all over the place. I lived in Chicago for like 6 months, and then we moved back to Texas and we lived in Austin. Anywho, we moved from Texas when I was in 2nd grade. We moved to Washington, but before that, when we lived in Texas, my parents split up, so they weren't divorced, but they lived in different houses, and I honestly don't remember for how long. Yeah, but they were split up. So then when my dad decided he wanted to take a job in Washington, they got back together, tried to figure it out, got to Washington quickly after, got a divorce. So my parents got divorced, and there's a lot of reasons why. These are parts that I'm like, do you share that? I don't know. My dad kind of had a drinking problem, so there was just a lot of things going on in my parents' marriage. There was a lot of reasons why they separated officially and got divorced, but that was a really bad time. Both my parents were in a really bad place, and it just wasn't the best environment. So oh, and I forgot to say, I did not grow up in a Christian home. That is important, I guess, but I did grow up in a Christian home, so we never went to church. But anyway, we're in Washington at this point. My mom's a flight attendant, so she leaves like 3 days, 2-3 nights out of the week. So when I was little, obviously we'd stay with my dad. So like our I can't remember the word, my parents time that they had with us was different because my mom's a flight attendant. So when my mom was gone, we would typically stay with my dad, but I hated staying at my dad's house. I'm pretty hard-headed, so I really did not like to, but sometimes I had to. I think probably like 3rd or 4th grade, I made a friend, and I would stay with her family. The audacity is, if you guys are watching this, hey, I love you guys. It's like I stayed with them quite a bit, and they went to church, so pretty much I started going to church because I would stay at my best friend's house and go to church with them, and then they would pick me up if I wasn't staying with them, and I just went with them on Sundays. So, and then I started doing like the youth group stuff with them, and yeah, so they took me to church, and their home was always really comfortable to me. They know that I was crazy when I was little, but yeah, so for years that is what I did. And then my parents were divorced, and my mom was in a really dark place, and at some point, I don't remember, my mom tells me this, so I don't know, but I would just ask her to go to church. I would like be praying over her, all these things. The Lord was working through me, I guess. But yeah, so finally my mom started going to church, and she has been going ever since, and she's completely changed, and like she's a whole great testimony to how God changes people's lives. And so that's kind of how I came to know God, go to church, and get my faith started. And then that was like elementary school, and then middle school I think is when my mom started going to church, and then 7th grade I got baptized. I don't remember much of middle school, but that pretty much sums up the middle school part of my life. Yeah, and then when I got to high school is kind of when faith and God and all that made a little more sense to me, and I kind of understood it a little more. I wanted to pursue it more. From what I can remember, I remember going to youth group and stuff in middle school, but in high school is when it started to become more real to me for a lot of reasons. In freshman year of high school, I started going to Young Life. It was a really cool thing to do. I loved Young Life. It's pretty much just, if you don't know what it is, it's outreach ministry. It is pretty much like a youth group, but a high school group, if that makes any sense. It's awesome. They have camps, and I would go to camp, and I had leaders, and it was great. And then I was a leader for girls, and yeah, it was awesome. So I loved Young Life, so I did that all of high school. The really great thing that I had in high school, and I had leaders, and we had Bible studies and meetings, and it was awesome. So this is a part, I just don't like talking about this, and I feel like these are things that I would try to like avoid, and I do this. I don't really like when things are bad or wrong, and I feel bad and horrible, and I just don't tell it how it is, if that makes sense. I feel like I avoid it and push it away. But anyway, sophomore year of high school is when things kind of started to change for me. I don't really remember exactly what happened. There was a time, I don't remember what was going on, just being so sad, and I don't really remember why, but I wasn't eating, and I just wasn't. So I'm just gonna put a little like message here about to skip to something struggling with like food stuff. I just want to put a disclaimer because I don't want anyone, I don't know where your heart's at, and I don't want to put you in a difficult position listening, I guess. Anyway, so I lost a ton of weight at this point, and I am 5'1", I have to say, and I, like 125 looks very different on me than my mom that's 5'9". And so just to preface by saying that, which doesn't really make it better, but I did weigh more in freshman year of high school, and by sophomore year I had lost quite a bit of weight because I was going through this like really weird sadness. Anyway, people started to notice and were like, "Greer, you look so good. What are you doing?" And I'm like, just, you know, not eating. And I didn't really realize, but like those people were saying those things to me, and so then I became so focused on that, and it was really weird. I've always feel like I've been insecure about my body. I feel like a lot of girls struggle with that, and I just remember like in 5th grade crying because I thought my thighs were too fat. I was a part of this group. We had to wear like leotards because we did like gymnastics stuff, and that made me really insecure in like 5th grade, and I'm like, I was so small. And in middle school I'd go on like only apple diets, like all these weird things, and I just was so insecure. And I just, the sad part is how much I hated my body and I hated myself, and I just wanted to focus on something and change it. And now I kind of realize things are like stemming from one place. But anyway, I struggled a lot with eating, and I had lost a ton of weight, but the thing is, on someone that's short, it didn't look like too sickly. At some point I did look pretty sick to myself, and looking back at pictures, I just like I look not myself. So anyway, after that, losing a ton of weight, I just was like kind of in this spiral of constant focus on food and constant focus on how many calories I ate, how I can burn them off, and how like the least amount of food I can eat. And there was times at cheer practice where I literally couldn't do it because I was so weak, and that's when I kind of realized there's a problem. And finally I like opened up to someone about it, and I realized there was a problem. So I really tried to fix it, and I opened up to my leaders at Young Life, and they were super encouraging. And it can get really scary and really dark, and my main focus was I wanted to have kids. And when your period and your hormones get so thrown off because you're struggling with eating issues, then that's for me when it was like, if I'm not getting my period, I can't do this anymore because I just want to have kids. And thankfully I'm having a baby. So anyway, what I'm trying to say, the thing that got me out of it was knowing my purpose here is like, God's purpose for me here is not to look a certain way. God looks at our heart. He does not look at ourselves like the world does. I wish I knew exactly what verse that was, but I'll put it up here. I'm not like the scripture queen. I just know some verses that, you know, have really helped me. And just knowing that that is not my purpose here, and that is not why God created me, is to look a certain way. And that is kind of the thing that got me to that point, and just realizing that I can pray about this. I can read what God says about me and those truths. And, you know, people were really encouraging to me during that time. And so pretty much so if you can see, this is like, that time was when I really, truly figured out what it meant to have God. So that's when I like met God, was when I was younger, and I figured out who Jesus was, and I kind of got to know. But then high school is kind of when it became more real to me, and I had to turn to him daily because I was struggling with these things. And that type of situation is not something that just goes away, and sometimes it doesn't. I'm very thankful that for me, I haven't struggled with it until now that my body's changing. And I'm just gonna be honest, it's been really hard to be pregnant. I'm 20 weeks and it's hard to watch your body change. Anyway, that's a different topic. But so that's kind of how I started to focus on God daily. And I just realized I needed him, and knowing my purpose was not to look a certain way at all. It was to serve God and be a light and share the gospel. And then kind of going into the rest of high school and then going into senior of high school, I struggled a lot with anxiety. Really bad. I would like go to school, and if you've ever had anxiety, I feel like you know what I'm talking about. You just have this moment where you're like, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I was just like, I cannot go in there right now. I would drive to school and I couldn't. So then I started going to online school, and it was really difficult, and I finally started going to counseling, and it helped a ton, and I was able to go back at some point in like the last semester of senior year. And I didn't cheer, and Bobby left for college. I started dating my now husband when I was a sophomore in high school, so he was there through all that struggle. And yeah, I struggled a lot with that. And again, I just had to finally realize there was a root of a problem that I wasn't fixing, and I started going to counseling. I don't think there's anything wrong with counseling. Yeah, but I just want to say, like, when you have God in your life, I feel like people just assume everything's perfect, everything's great, and that is so not true. And just in my devotional this morning, I was reading that we're going to go through trials of various kinds. So that was kind of high school, and really where I started to know God in my daily life. And I guess moving on from high school, I, you know, was going to counseling, all that, and then I came to college and I didn't, and then I struggled with anxiety in college about so many things. I was so overwhelmed. I didn't like school. I just felt like my purpose in school wasn't my purpose, and I just felt like if you don't feel like you have purpose, things really bad feelings start happening when you feel like you don't have purpose. And that is so not true. You always have purpose in every season, which is something that I have had to realize. But anyway, freshman year was so weird and hard transition. Sophomore year of college, I feel like I was feeling my best. I felt like I had purpose. I was on the cheer team. I had never felt more confident and comfortable in my body. I actually loved my body, and I just felt so good. And which seems weird because you're literally in a sports bra and like a spandex and you're showing your whole body, but I felt so good and strong and confident. I feel like the last year has been so hard, and maybe not this last year. Well, I guess it's been a year. Yeah. I hate talking about this part because this is like the darkest I have ever felt. And it's sad because I feel like it's when I was the strongest in my faith is all of a sudden this change of feeling such sadness. And I call it sadness, and I don't know what exactly it was. I didn't go to the doctor. I thought about it over and over and over again. This last year, before I got engaged in January, I was struggling so much. Anxiety, sadness, school stuff. It was so overwhelming to me. And I just knew I needed to change something, so I like dropped out of school. And it's hard because I had to quit cheer, which I loved cheer, and which there was only like a month left, so it wasn't that bad. I only missed I didn't really miss that much of it, but still it was like so sad. And I was gonna move home, and then I got engaged, and it was just this whole thing. But I just never really got the help that I needed during that time. I struggled so much with friends, with everything, and I felt so lonely and horrible. And I don't know why. I don't know what it was, but I do have to say one thing about that time. Now that I am pregnant and my hormones are completely different, I have never been happier. We're moving, we're having a baby, like all these big life changes, and I have never been more at peace, and I have never felt, you know, closer to God in this time. I feel like I'm really jabbering on. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. What I'm trying to get at here is before then, I think there was something off with my hormones. There'd be like 2 weeks where I was like a completely different person. I mean, so sad. I am gonna be honest, I didn't want to be here anymore. I hated myself. I didn't want to be here. And it is so sad to think about how much I hated myself and how, oh, do I want to put this on the internet? I don't know. I just didn't, yeah, I kind of, that's all I want to say about it. And it was just a really dark time. I'm sharing from beginning until now just to show that, like, once you have God, that doesn't mean that your life is just perfect and you never struggle with anything. And I wish it was like that. It's a daily thing to turn to God. And this is my encouragement to you. If you're struggling with that stuff, go get checked for hormones, or just go to a doctor if you're struggling at all, because there's help. And to be in that dark place is the worst thing in the world, and it's so scary, but then you don't want to do anything to get out of it, and that's the scarier part. So anyway, that's my little spiel on that, and I am so thankful that I've not been in that place for a while now. So anyway, there's so many times where I felt so lonely walking alone in those things that I felt like a bad Christian. I felt like I didn't actually believe in God. I felt like people would be making fun of me, and maybe people do think those things, but to know that it's really truly not what God thinks of me, and it's not the truth. So anyway, I feel like I'm really blabbering on, and I just hope that was helpful in any sort of way, just to know you're not alone. I don't have the best advice because I just don't know, but yeah, being a Christian isn't just, or being a Christian, believing in God isn't just something you say and you go on Sundays. It's a daily thing. It's what you do daily, and it is something that you have to turn to, and it's a relationship you have to build. And that, I feel like I'm gonna have to edit this video so much because I don't even know what I'm talking about. I really hope and pray that this is somewhat helpful, but also I just am sharing my story so y'all know me a little better, and that is kind of been where I have been. So this is my testimony / life current story, and yeah, so I don't really know how to end this because I feel really awkward, but I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Questions about faith, about anything, you can message me on Instagram or you can comment down below. I really appreciate y'all, and I will see you in my next video.